Welcome to episode 49 of the Necronama.com. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now, and I didn't go to NYU. It was my first choice, but I didn't get in, so I went to Hofstra.
And I am Doug Shapiro. I am Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, and co-host of this podcast you're listening to, and we got a good one today.
Yeah, we do. I'm excited. So joining us today, Derek Herbert, you directed the KANE HODDER documentary To Hell and Back. I'm a huge KANE HODDER fan, as you know. I'm so excited that you're here. And then, of course, we're going to talk about one of Kane's movies, Hatchet, as well. Welcome to the show, man.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So tell us a bit about the documentary. I know it's on Shudder right now. I've seen it 3 times, I think. But let anybody who hasn't seen it know why they should go rush out and see it as soon as they finish listening to this episode.
Well, yeah, so To Hell and Back, the KANE HODDER Story is a passion project of mine that we made back in 2015 and that came out in 2017. It's been out for a little while now, obviously, but it's one of those movies that, I don't know, I still am very passionate. I'm very proud of what we were able to do. We tell Kane's story not only from the perspective of the horror fan who might enjoy all of the films he's in, but also it's a very much a human interest story. It's about Kane's entire life. He was bullied severely as a child, burned with third-degree burns over half his body, and then had horrific malpractice at the first hospital he was at before finally going to a hospital that knew what they were doing when it came to treating burns. So he's lived quite the life and then built himself through, the American dream into becoming this horror and stunt icon and a phenomenal actor who would probably never call himself an actor because he feels like since he never had any formal training in it, he can't use that title, but the man's a great actor. So I definitely feel like he's just getting started when it comes to that. And I think those are all the elements we really touch in the documentary. It's very much a labor of love, but so far, like the critics, the fans, they all seem to really enjoy what we did. And it's not only on Shudder, but if you don't have Shudder and you'd rather not try it, I fully endorse the product. I think it's a great one. I've been a member for quite a long time now. But if you're not, and you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, it is also available for streaming on Amazon Prime.
Oh, cool.
And available everywhere else for purchase. I highly recommend our Blu-ray DVD combo pack just because I handcrafted 90 minutes of bonus footage that's on there. So if you enjoy the film and you watch it on one of those platforms streaming and you want to see 90 minutes more, you can pick it up. It's available via Epic Pictures and Dread. And it's definitely, I think, worth owning because a lot of people say physical media is dead, and in some cases they are right. It's definitely a different market than it was a few years ago. But I think for the true collectors like me and a lot of our horror fans, they still love having a physical copy, and we put together something really good.
Going back to something you said Kane may not consider himself an actor. Now, I don't have the balls to ever look KANE HODDER in the face and tell him that he's wrong, but my feeling... Then you're my hero. But my feeling is a guy who can act like that under pounds of prosthetics, bring Jason alive through breathing, give Victor Crowley this almost sympathetic thing he has going on with some of his looks. I mean, if that's not acting, I don't know what the fuck is. So while I won't stand toe-to-toe with the man and tell him he's wrong, I'm going to go ahead and disagree with him here.
Yeah, I've disagreed with him on that too, and big time. Like I went to a set of his for a film that hasn't come out yet, but is going to. Now I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, this movie he's in is he did such an incredible. It's called Knife Corp. Unless they've changed the name. I went on set. It was filming in a town fairly close to mine. He invited me one day on set, and watching him work on that, like, good Lord, he knows what he's doing, big time. A few years ago, he may not have, but he definitely has grown significantly in his abilities as an actor, and I think that's because he really cares about it and he wants to do well, and he's also getting a chance to act in all these movies. Like I joking before the call started, he is the best part of a lot of the movies he's in, and that's because I think he takes it so seriously. He shows up on day one and talks with the director, and he gets a sense of the character, and so even if it's a straight to DVD or straight to digital movie that a lot of people are phoning it in, he's never one of those people. He doesn't take the paycheck and run. He actually cares about what he's doing on the project. And
it definitely shows.
Somebody you want.
And that's why he gets the chance to do 20 movies a year, is because he actually is a joy to have on set.
So you talked a little bit about how he was bullied, and that's one of the two parts of this documentary that really ripped at my heart. The other is Kane talking about the little girl. I'm not even going to go there because I don't want to ruin that emotion for anybody that watches this documentary, but the little girl rips me up too. But when he's talking about being bullied, how these kids randomly jumped him and kicked his ass, and he was so embarrassed by it that he hid in his bedroom and wouldn't even show his mom that this happened to him. So he's not getting any pain medication. He's not getting ice or water or anything to help with it. He's just laying there fucking taking it. Like, holy shit, that got to me on such a deep level. And it really translates. I know we're going to talk about Hatchet here in a little bit, but I think that it really translates into Victor's character as well. You know, same kind of thing. Victor's picked on by the neighborhood kids, and it's what kind of leads him down this path. And I think it's very interesting how, while Kane has embraced these characters like Victor and Jason, who was also neglected and abused and picked on and whatever else, you know, like, he's such the opposite when you meet him in person. Like, you can tell Kane's always looking for the laugh. He's always looking to bring light into someone else's life. And I think that's such a cool juxtaposition.
So I've seen him interact with people, a lot of different people, who I feel like a lot of people wouldn't necessarily give them a lot of time, but Kane doesn't do it in a way to like alienate them. In fact, quite the opposite. But like, if somebody is also a burn survivor, Kane wants to talk to them. He wants to understand what they went through. He wants to relate to them. He wants to have a conversation. He doesn't just want to like sign their item and move on. And that's why I think so many people wanted to see him as like, it's an actual full-on interaction. It's not just a quick, here you go, best wishes, Kane Hodder, or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's a memory absolutely. Of you meeting the person as opposed to just somebody who, quickly signs something and moves on.
Yeah, I was at a convention last year that Kane was at, and I got something signed from him, and I think I was with him for 10, 15 minutes. And it wasn't just me, like the whole line was that way. Like everybody got a lot of time with the guy. He wasn't going anywhere. He didn't have like I'm only here for 2 hours. It was like, I'm here all fucking day. We're going to do this. Everybody's getting time. And it's so cool the way he gives back to the horror community like that.
Yeah. Every convention I've been with him at, he is one of the last people gone, if not the last person. Back to the convention out here in Burbank, or not Burbank. This was in Pasadena, Monsterpalooza.
Oh, yeah.
Last year, he closed it out. Like, they literally had, Monsterpalooza had their security people escorting fan by fan out as he finished because the convention center was closed. Every vendor had moved out. They were cleaning up everything. It was just the Monsterpalooza people breaking down all the booths and stuff. And Kane sitting there signing things. So all around him, it was like slowly, if there was a time lapse, everything would have been taken down by the time he finished. It was like an empty convention center with Kane just sitting there signing because and he doesn't like leaving to get pizza. He doesn't even like leaving to do panels and stuff very much. He'll do if you notice when you see him at a convention, he likes doing one a day maximum, and he doesn't like doing any on the Saturday of the convention. He prefers doing the panels on Friday or Sunday.
Huh.
If he needs to do one, and that's just because he doesn't want to get up and leave. And leaving for the panels, you're gone for, if the panel's an hour, and depending on where it is, you might be gone from the table for 2 hours.
Yep.
By the time you walk all the way over. It's not just a quick jaunt a lot of the time. It's Atlanta at the Walker Stalker Con we were at, to do the one that we recorded bits for the documentary where it's him and Robert Englund. That was clear, probably a half a mile inside this convention center across the way to the giant hall that had that theater in it. But it was not a quick distance. So when we needed to run back to our room, we had this convention room that they were nice enough to give us a full banquet hall to use to store our gear and then film in. We had to go clear across the convention center to get to that room and then go all the way back to the area. So it was definitely an ordeal. It was for him to get there too. Him and Robert had to be escorted by people all the way over there, and then all the way back, and they both just wanted to do it quickly because they obviously wanted to do it and had fun, but they also wanted to make sure that they were respectful because some people were decided to skip the panel and wait in line for both of them. So they're welcome to wait in line for that 2-hour block too.
I was at Mad Monster Party last year, and Kane was there. He did the in-costume photo op. I think it was Friday 7, maybe. I'm not sure which one it was. Anyway, he did it on Friday at the start of the convention. That way, he had all day to get into the makeup and everything else and the costume. And then he did it. And then when he was done, he came out and signed autographs. And I thought that was really cool because a lot of conventions wouldn't think that out. And I don't know if that was Kane saying, this is how we're going to do it, or if the con was smart or what. But a lot of conventions will take that whole section where you could have been at your table meeting people, and they'll make you go do your costuming then, which is really fucking stupid. So if anybody listening is doing conventions, do it right, please.
No, he definitely did a very interesting thing with that. I'm sure that was partly him and partly the makeup team. They're usually pretty good at talking with him and being what do you want to do? What do you think the best thing to do for this is? Because he doesn't like being held up. That's one big thing with Kane is he's not a fan of people maybe like this or maybe like that. He's just make a decision. He wants to. So, unfortunately, we lost one of the greats. We were fortunate enough to get in the doc, John Carl Buechler, because that's the person who really he did the Jason Part 7 for the last time with John, and now he usually does Part 8. He'll do an Uber Jason he did a little while ago for the first time. Nice. He did classic NES Jason, the one in the new Friday game. That one, the purple and blue one.
Yeah, he did that. He did that at Mad Monster. He did that one and the flaming.
So those, yeah, exactly. So he's been trying to do different things because the Part 7 is so much prosthetic time that he'd rather not do it anymore if he can help it.
Yeah.
But he's I'm done with it. But with Kane, never say never. If somebody were to say to him, this thing's going to support this charity or that thing's going to do this, he might be willing to do it. But I think with John gone, it would take a special person or team to really want to really convince Kane that was the best move. Otherwise, he has so many other characters he can do. And I would love to have a Victor photo op at some point.
I was just gonna say that I would be all over that. I love Jason. Jason's my all-time favorite, but I would love a Victor one. I think that would be nuts.
Exactly. It's just it would be a lot of coordination. They'd have to do it like they did the Doug Bradley Pinhead thing.
Yes.
I had a friend who went to that. I was unfortunately not able to go, but I had a friend who flew in actually from Chile and went to, I think that was Mad Monster too, right?
It was. Yeah, it was
and
Mad
went
Monster.
to that experience, the Pinhead experience, I think they called it. And incredible set. Imagine if they had like the Hatchet like house set with like a slight bayou feel and like noise of like the environment in there, and like, you know what I mean? Like it'd be really cool, or the scare boat or something. And then you took Victor like popped out and you took a picture as he was scaring you. It'd be like if they had like the house, like the barn or whatever, and then shed, I mean, and you just were standing there waiting for like, oh, we'll bring in Kane in a minute. And then strobe light went off and Kane was right there. And the picture was when you screamed. That would be an incredible photo op. I'm going to actually talk to Kane about that.
You should. No, the Pinhead experience and they did, which Jason did they do? I don't remember. Anyway, they did a Jason one as well. And something else. A bunch of my friends worked on those sets. And so I got to see pictures of them like putting it together and how it looked when it was done and different things like that. It was so cool. So yeah, I think more conventions should do that as well. Like it's a whole set. So when you do the photo op, it's straight like being in the film. It's really neat. So I suppose we should jump into the film at some point, huh? As long as we're talking about Victor anyway. Yeah, so I always ask people why they picked this film. And in your situation, I mean, you ties to Kane and stuff like that. Outside of that, what is it about Hatchet that makes you like it so much? Is it the story, the humor, what?
Well, Hatchet's one of those movies that, and a lot of people don't know this because they assume since I'm big into horror that I've been that way forever, because a lot of people, have been. But in college is really when I got back into horror. Like I've always loved Halloween and loved it as a kid and stuff, but like I always was scared of horror. And in college, my roommate and good friend, who is actually the cinematographer of To Hell and Back, Zach Hunter, he introduced me to a lot of the classic horror movies and a lot of crazy ones too. But one of the movies was Hatchet. And that was my introduction to Kane. Before I'd ever seen a Friday the 13th movie, before I had all that, it was Victor. So, and Hatchet. So for me, I just love that movie. I love that franchise. Adam Green is a great filmmaker. Lucky enough to know him now. He is one of those people who, I will support his work because I legitimately think it's good. And I like him as a person, but I feel like he has consistently created quality content. And this being his second feature, but the first one that you can actually like get and watch, Coffee and Donuts, which was his actual first, which Holliston was sort of a rough reboot of. It's a different kind of feel, but the same story, isn't available anywhere. So this is his first like major film. And it just, between the story of it, I just love, it's like a great, first of all, New Orleans and that area, I just love. And my sister went to school down in Louisiana at LSU. So every time I visited her, we spend time in Louisiana, of course, but in New Orleans. Like I would make her and I take that drive up there and stay in the French Quarter and everything, because I really love the food, the atmosphere, the culture. It's just a wonderful area. And I think this film captures something about that kind of eerie environment that's like, and really cool mythology that makes that area great. Lots of ghost stories and voodoo and witchcraft and all that story. That their whole history is built on that, be it for a lot of false reasons, because of people taking advantage of other people, but also just a lot of fun cultural reasons as well.
What about you, Don? Have you ever been to New Orleans?
No, I've never. Yes, I've been. And I'm mad at James for two reasons. I've been sitting here, because of the quarantine and everything. I'm like, I was supposed to go to New Orleans and go do some more research for my graduate program and then also for another book. And I can't go. And so I'm sitting here like, I miss that place so much because it's so much fun.
It is.
And there's just so much, and I mean fun, not Mardi Gras fun. I mean, as far as you can just sit down and soak in everything, the good parts of the history, the bad parts of the history that's there. But there's so much that hasn't been told because there are people that aren't willing to talk about some of those things. Or in the case of my father, who grew up just northwest of New Orleans or in west of Baton Rouge, would say things like, I mentioned something about voodoo one day when we were in New Orleans, and my dad was like, "Why do you want all this fake shit? Your great grandmother's the one who actually did this." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, all this stuff is just like from the movies and this and that. It's not what it really is." And so that was our last conversation we had about voodoo that day because I didn't want to ask too many questions. But I love everything that that this film brings out about the city, where, you have that glamorous part of Mardi Gras at the beginning, and then you get the push to see the darker part by Ben saying like, "Hey, I want to go on a ghost tour. I want to check," kind of doing the touristy thing.
Yeah, and I do that every time I go, which always cracks people up that I'm with, is I insist on doing a walking ghost tour. Different one every time.
Oh, it's fun.
They're so much fun, and even though it's hot, I always pick the wrong time of the year to go. When I went in August, I've gone in June. I've never gone to Louisiana in like February, where it's probably lovely, but like going in August is like it'll be like nighttime and dusk, and it's still 90 degrees outside. It is hot.
Yes. The humidity, the mosquitoes, that stuff doesn't help, but
no. All right. The humidity is what kills me.
So really fast, I've never been to New Orleans. I was trying to go this year and it did not work out, obviously. When you guys see these Mardi Gras scenes in this film and you see like the ghost tour thing, since you were just talking about that kind of stuff, when they're on the boat doing the tour, like, is it anything like this? Like, is this really funny to people that have been there? Is it like a total play on what really happens? Or is it like nothing like that? Like, why
I've never been to Mardi Gras, but what I can say is just going on a random weekend or probably weeknight to like Bourbon Street.
Mm-hmm.
It is pretty much the shit show that they show. Yeah. But at a certain point, because you can walk around open container of alcohol in New Orleans. So like you literally walk up to like pretty much what is the equivalent of like a window operation that normally would sell like, magazines or something in like New York. And they'll have like margarita machines, or you could go in. They have this thing called the hand grenade. That's just a giant, like 3-foot frozen drink that is filled with 30 kinds of alcohol. And you have a couple of those and, you might be the Adam Green because he has a cameo there, like in one of the movies. And then there's other like he's in every movie as that same douchebag kind of character. At least the first 3 of like The Friend. But like you always have like people just passed out and like peeing on the streets. And the joke in New Orleans is if you don't want to step in any puddles because it's probably not water.
Right.
At least in that area. So you have to be, so like there is an atmosphere of like sort of like that. But at the same point, like it also like you walk one street away from that and it's like jazz culture and everything else. So like if you want that, and usually what I try to do is one night I try to do the more partying stuff. At least I did when I was younger. I don't know if I would do that anymore. And and then like one day of like the culture stuff, a lot more of that. But like voodoo was more done back in the day. A voodoo doll was your medical chart for people who couldn't read, what a lot of people don't know. So like the voodoo doll and the different colored pins were like, if you had red pins in your head, it might be a headache.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to another witch doctor or another doctor who doesn't really, and you can't really explain what's going on because you can't speak well or you can't write, or they can't read, you show them this and they'll know what you're talking about. So the whole Marie Laveau, who was a genius marketer, is really what it was, because there were many Marie Laveaus. It was her, then her daughter, then her granddaughter,
right,
and such. But they all would take over when they got to a certain age, and they looked the same, because the Marie Laveau doesn't age. She's a voodoo queen. Myth was so important to the brand that that's how they kept it going, by switching out the people who were Marie, and then the other Maries would just be her family, even though they a couple weeks ago were the head of this operation. But she had the brilliant idea to make it what everyone wanted it to be, this like evil kind of thing. So like she started doing the thing of like selling charms and curses and all that kind of stuff, but it was all just like it was a cash grab by someone who was in the culture that originated it. Because what was happening is she would be invited over to all of these like rich, like plantation owners and rich white people's houses to do voodoo and stuff, to like, and stuff. And they wanted a show. They didn't want a medical chart.
Exactly.
So she came up with the whole illusion of what voodoo is. And she was so good at marketing it that that's what stuck. So it's brilliant. If you look at it from that perspective, it is absolutely brilliant that she still has there's still location there, Marie Laveau's. Like, that's what people know as voodoo, even though the reality of it was a lot less.
That's really interesting.
A lot more. Of course, you had people that actually were dark doing things, but that wasn't really voodoo. That was more hoodoo and other kinds of things that they really tried to get curses and stuff going. But most of voodoo was perfectly innocent.
Do you have anything to add to that, Don?
Oh no, I was going to say that the part just by with Tony Todd's thing of what was it, Reverend Zombie.
I love Reverend Zombie.
I love that whole interaction, but then when he says, "Oh well," after he does his spiel, which we'll get into, and he says, "Oh no, go down to Marie Laveau's to check this out." If this movie hadn't included her, I was going to be disappointed. Like a reference, I would have been sorely disappointed. But then when they went in the store and everything, I was like, "This is fucking awesome. This is exactly what they should have put in to kind of capture that fanaticism about who she was, or at least, and kind of how that spawned something else with the juxtaposition of what they had just left." But like you were saying, Derek, that part where you even see a puddle in this film. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm laughing, cracking up throughout the entire movie, like even during the kill scenes, because so much stuff was done so well. But that one puddle where you just see it and there's some beads and a cup or something, I'm like, that ain't water and that ain't beer. I've been down there enough times to know what the fuck that is. Somebody, even in the daytime, again, James, my offer still stands. Whenever all this is done, if there's convention, we've got to hit up the ones in New Orleans, because this is like a Wednesday. I mean, it's not even clear that this is the hot time of Mardi Gras or spring break or what's going on. This could have been a Wednesday afternoon that they decided to go out into the streets, because like Derek was saying, you can hit it at the right time. The last couple of times I've been there.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, couple of times I've been there, it was like a weekday, and people were out. And what was really crazy was my daughter, I think she was 2 at the time, and we were out on Bourbon Street at like 9, 10 o'clock at night, just going to get something to eat. And this one person who was obviously a tourist, who brings a baby to Bourbon Street? And I looked at her, and then my wife like grabbed my arm, and I'm thinking like, you obviously are new here. Because this shit is common where you know, someone might be going out to eat late at night. They take their kids and it's like, I'm going down to Bourbon Street because I need to go to, I can't even remember what's out there now. But we went to just go get some rice and beans. But my wife looked at me like, just don't say it. Don't say it. She's drunk. I was like, no. He's like, hey, we can go where the fuck we want. It's like, this is my town. Get out.
I would have been like, we conceived the baby here. What's the problem?
Oh, yeah.
This is little Orleans. It's funny because you don't really get as much of the bead stuff on non-New Orleans time. At least I didn't see much of that, but almost everything else. Like, I mean, there are people wearing them, but
right.
The throwing them and flashing and all that stuff, that's typically, from what I gather, mostly New Orleans, maybe in the club or whatever, it would be non that time, but but I need to make it back at some point. I need to go. My sister doesn't live there anymore. She moved to Portland a while back, so I don't have a reason to necessarily go other than just wanting to go to New Orleans, which is a reason enough. But I was supposed to go to Vegas before all this stuff happened, and now I'm just hoping I can go before, because I always spend my anniversary in Vegas, and that's in August. So I'm hoping that by August it'll at least open up. But and I feel like people aren't going to want to travel for a long time, which kind of stinks because my day job is at a major theme park. So when is that going to reopen is the big question that
right.
We're all feeling right now. And how's it going to reopen, and what's it going to look like?
No, totally.
Well, I tell you what, when it does reopen and there's an opportunity to go to New Orleans, all three of us are going.
Sounds fun.
No?
And the place went silent. No.
Well, James doesn't drink, so it could just be you and me.
I was going to say, like, here's how it's going to end up. James doesn't drink. James doesn't like crowds. So I'm literally going to be Joel David Moore over here going, you guys have a great time. I'll see you later. Then I'm going to go this way. And then my random black friend's going to come running after me. Oh, wait, what? And
no, I mean, there is a lot of stuff to do. Like, I really truly believe like the next time I go, I don't know if I'm going to have a day drinking in Bourbon Street. I feel like I want to do like more of the jazz clubs. I feel like I want to do more of the other side of it because,
right.
You know, I can still drink from time to time, but like, I just, I don't drink as much as I used to. When I hit 30, especially 31, my drinking tolerance went down a bit.
So tell me about this ghost tour thing, though. Like this guy on the boat. Like when you go on a ghost tour, have you encountered a guy like this, or like are they usually pretty good?
I mean, they're usually pretty good, but they do tell a lot of fake stories or
of course
falsities.
That's part of the
fun. And their stories don't really ever add up. I'm usually the guy like. I feel like I'm like the old couple on the boat all the time who are like, well, actually, the last time I did this, they said that. Was that not true? Or are you not telling me the truth here? But I usually like befriend them and I'm the guy right in front. So there'll be like 15 of us there, but I'm usually the person who gets right next to the person so I can always talk about it because I'm fascinated by all this stuff. But yeah, they usually have I've had people who have the showmanship. One of the last guys I had a big like staff, like Reverend Zombie type thing. And he was more like, he didn't really like act like, ooh, kind of like Reverend Zombie. Because if you like that character, if you like the character Donald in the sequel, the second one, Reverend Zombie is a major character in the movie. Because they got him as like a cameo in the first one. And he loved working with them and they wanted him in the second one. So he's like a big old character in the second one.
Let me touch on that really fast. I find it great that in Adam's first real big movie like this, he got Tony Todd, Kane Hodder, Robert Englund. Like, holy shit, that's fantastic. And he uses them, but they're used in such great ways. Like Kane, of course, is kind of typical Kane. Actually, I'd argue he's amped up Kane even more. Like, I think that Victor's an amped up Jason. But, like, Robert Englund's character is fucking great. And then Tony Todd's character, I mean, you know my affinity with Tony. I fucking love Reverend Zombie. And then you bring in the second film, and I don't want to ruin it for everybody, but he's so good in the second film, and I love his final scene in the second film as well.
No, exactly. Like, I mean, obviously, as it went on, it became most likely easier for Adam to get these people because he met them, and knows them. Yeah. But like Kane was, we touch on it in the doc, but like a lot of it is Kane obviously worked with John Carl Buechler in prison, and then Friday the 13th Part 7, which John did the makeup and directed. And he's worked with him since. So Adam had already gotten John Carl Buechler to do Victor's makeup. And John said after reading the script, do you want me to show this to Kane? And Adam had always wanted Kane to do it, but didn't know that he'd ever get the opportunity or Kane would even think about it. Said, I mean, sure. And Kane, obviously, we know, jumped at it and met with Adam, and they've had a very successful team. They become a great team, making a lot of projects together. But I'm guessing Adam was probably helpful or Kane was probably helpful in getting those other people. I'm not 100% sure on that. It also, the first Hatchet movie had a nice budget too. But I feel like it was probably a mixture of the fact that Kane was excited about it and Kane has a great relationship with these people, as well as the fact that it is a great script and it is very original.
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that Robert might have, and it was very low key, especially that first movie for the two of them. Kane was signing on for the big ordeal. Two of them were a day of work, probably, I'm not sure, but probably shot in Los Angeles. Tony Todd definitely New Orleans, but they could have easily shot Robert Englund in LA. So it may not have been as crazy of a thing where they flew him and all that other stuff. Yeah. So it definitely, But going back to what you were saying though about the boat tours, that's one thing, unfortunately, that I've never been able to do, because normally they don't do haunted boat tours. They don't do swamp tours at night. Yeah.
I just meant in general with the ghost tours. If it was like if this guy's kind of a stereotype of something you see a lot, or if he's just hilarious in the film. But
to promote Victor Crowley, the fourth Hatchet film, they actually brought Kane and Adam Green and partnered with a boat company and did haunted swamp tours with Kane and Adam.
Oh, Jesus, that's awesome.
They did two of them. And then they left the next day after doing that for the Impractical Jokers World Tour cruise. One of the Impractical Jokers cruises. So it was definitely, it's a whirlwind kind of a thing when you're promoting a film. But I wish I was able to get down there to do the boat tour at night, because I've done the boat tours during the day and I've done the ghost tours. But I think that's the part of that movie I think I love the most, is the fact that the haunted boat tour. I love to go out into like the Everglades or the swamps at night, because you'd be safe on a boat, gators are easy to spot with flashlights.
I'm going to go ahead and wait for you at the hotel, okay?
Yeah, I was going to say that. You're on your own on that one.
I'd be so mad. I'd be like, damn it, I missed watching a bunch of people get eaten by gators. Anyway. So, moving into the film, I want to talk about a couple of the themes. And I feel like a lot of times slashers get this bad rep for they're just stupid slashers. They're just for fun. And I think you can learn a shitload from slashers. I mean, I've talked a lot about how I believe that Jason Voorhees is the equivalent of the Angel of Death. I've talked about different things like that. But I also really feel when you look at like Victor Crowley, bullying is such a huge factor in his story. And you add into he's kept in this cabin by his dad, which I don't think is malicious in any way. I think he's trying to protect him, you know? Right. But when he does get to go out into the real world, he's immediately attacked by people. These kids are banging on the window and they're terrified of him. Then in his own home, these people come and attack him. Like, there's no reason for Victor to grow up and like be nice to people, you know? And I think that reflects so much in our society when we have so many people who are attacked constantly in their own home or anywhere else. And I wanted to know what you guys' thoughts on bullying in general and how it goes into this. Like, what do you guys think of that theme as far as social commentary is concerned?
Oh, definitely. I think bullying definitely played a big factor in that character and funnily enough, all the stuff with his dad gets explained a lot more in the second film. Like, he was smart enough to kind of hold off on a lot of the explanation. So it's definitely one where I think, his dad kept him there, both protection from him and for himself. And then I think that it was, like, he was picked on as a kid. He was pretty much killed by those kids. And then, then people keep coming into his swamp time and time and time again, coming to him. Like, if no one entered his swamp, he wouldn't kill anybody, at least in the current iteration of what Hatchet is. He wouldn't be able to kill anyone because he's in that swamp.
Since Derek brought up the whole idea of the backstory, you get enough truth and enough myth mixed in to where even if you were on this tour, you would question, like, you know, is it real? Is it not? And even as a viewer, you question it but you see these gators and you're like, well, maybe it's all bullshit and somebody made up the story because these gators are attacking people. So there's enough myth there where you can question it, but there's enough to where you're going to believe it, or at least you're going to be a little bit fearful of what's to come.
Yeah, you know, I've been talking solely in terms of Hatchet 1. Obviously, I know where 2 and 3 go. I have not seen Victor Crowley yet, but I really, really want to. But I like that Adam Green had this plotted. Like, he was like, I've got the second film. I've got the third. I know what we're doing. This is the part of the story we're unleashing in 1. And it takes you in a certain direction. And I love how it works so well. But holy fuck, it was ballsy for a guy who hasn't been making a lot of hit films before this to think, I'm going to get to make all 3 of these. This is fine.
No, it was. And, you know, his original goal was to do 3. And it was actually Wes Craven and, you know, the great late Wes Craven, and another late great George A. Romero, who convinced him to come back to Victor. They both said to him, he said to Wes, like, he's done doing movies, and Wes told him, the last time he saw Wes actually, told him, I don't think you get to decide that.
Wow.
At this point, the fans, you know, you created something amazing, but like Freddy Krueger, like, the fans tell you when you're done making them. I was done with the first one, but people wanted more. So, like, you have to be smart, and you can either let it go and let other people do it, or if you want to be in charge of the story, like Wes did a lot of times with 1, with 3, and with New Nightmare, it was his version of the story. So, like, he came back to it because he had other things to tell. Whereas Adam, other than not by title directing Hatchet 3, he's directed and written every single movie. So, and he wrote 3, he just didn't direct it, by title at least. He was still very heavily involved, obviously. Yeah. I think it took him a while, due to other things going on in his life as well, to decide he wanted to come back into that playground. And when he did, you got to watch Victor Crowley. It is a fun ride. And it brings, as the other Hatchet movies went on, 2 and 3, a lot of the more comedic moments. It's still funny, but it's not quite. They really embrace comedy in the 4th one. But he was smart, and he was like, you know what? I'm going to tell my story. And if I don't get the chance, I'm sure he thought, to give all of this away, I'd rather not blow all of the mystery in one take. Because it wouldn't be necessary. I think, like you said, you give just enough in the first one to know what you need to know. And the second one, you learn more because it's relevant. In real life, the same thing happens. You don't necessarily... It'd be the equivalent of, I think I might want to bake a cake. And you go out and you read everything about cooking every type of baked good. No, you'd get a recipe and you'd make a cake. You'd learn
Right.
what you needed to learn to do that. And then if you wanted to bake brownies or cookies or make a steak or a casserole, you would learn more things as you need to moving forward. Or maybe once you bake the cake and it wasn't the greatest, you'd want to find out why. Oh, maybe I need to use cake flour, etc. Like there are ways of going about it that are different. And I think the approach of giving the audience what they need and not everything they want keeps them coming back.
Well, and from a writing point of view, as a writer myself, here's what Adams Wade did. A lot of times sequels suck because they don't have anything left to say and they're cash grabs, right?
Right.
He made it so that they're each very interesting for their own reasons. But the other thing he did, say 2 and 3 never get made, right? 1 stands on its own just fine. It's a great story as it is. If 2 gets made but 3 doesn't, same thing. There's all this new info and it's great, but you don't have to have the 3rd one. And I really admire how he was able to do this, where he could keep building on it and it keeps paying off and you keep being invested. But he also did it in a way where if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. That's phenomenal. A lot of people can't fucking do that. And I really admire that he was able to.
Yeah, because even with the ending for this one, it leaves me with enough satisfaction as far as with the story and everything. That could be the only one I ever watch. I mean, if that had been the only one made. Whereas other movies, like, they clearly make it seem like, oh, there has to be a second one, or they give you some lead in or some tease, and then you get completely disappointed because, it didn't do well enough or didn't get enough support, and then you're just left with so many questions. This one, I felt a lot of things were tied together to the point where you would have been fine if it hadn't. Thankfully, it flipped the other way, and you actually do have several movies to follow up where you have the continuance of the story and other things can get thrown in.
Well, the other thing it does is, Saw is my favorite franchise of all time, even though there's no Saw 7. And I love Saw, but Saw 1 doesn't fit with the others because it became, what the fuck do we do now?
Right.
And all this revisionist history happens throughout the Saw films. And you have to be okay with that if you're going to love Saw. You have to be okay with this thing probably didn't matter, but we're writing it in now. And in a way, as a writer, that's what interests me about it. Because I'm like, you found this little thing that meant nothing in the first one and you were able to incorporate it later, And you don't have that with Hatchet. Hatchet is purposeful. And Saw, as much as I love it, would be a lot more powerful.
You didn't like Saw the final chapter?
Saw 3D? Saw 3D is not a real thing.
No, I'm saying Saw Saw 3D. Oh, no. I have to say, I did see that one. I've seen all of them. I've seen that one, and I actually kind of liked the way it tied everything together. I was hopeful that it was over, and then they made
Jigsaw,
which was just, I didn't care for it. A lot of people liked it. I didn't understand what they were trying to do. with it. I mean, I did, but it wasn't my cup of tea. But I'm very excited for this Spiral from the Book of Saw. Like the idea of
from the Book of Saw looks amazing.
The idea of bringing back Darren Lynn Bosman, who did 2, 3, and 4. Granted, Saw 2, the reason it's so different is because it was an original script that he had written that they modified to be a Saw movie.
Yep.
And then he went to the same film school I did. But the idea of bringing him back to do another one with Chris Rock, which is it Chris Rock? I think so, right?
Yeah, Chris Rock.
Yeah, Chris Rock and stuff. It's just, it's weird to me that Chris Rock would want to do a horror movie. But I like the idea of doing something different with it. And because Jigsaw was a lot of the same. It was a lot of the same under the guise of it being different. They were like, we're making something different. But it really wasn't. It wasn't terrible. I wasn't a huge fan of Leatherface, if we're going to get into modern reincarnations. But that's only because I just thought they were too intelligent. Generally, I didn't hate the movie, but the family was always supposed to be hillbillies or hicks, you know?
Right.
Not very smart. And I don't know if you've seen that movie, but they're like talking with attorneys and they're speaking legal, like the mom's speaking legal jargon. And I thought she was supposed to be like a byproduct of like incest or something. I thought that was the whole point of the family, was that they were like barely able to speak and like, you know what I mean? Like they weren't intelligent. They weren't just, I don't know. It just, to me, didn't strike me as that believable, but.
Yeah. No, I could see that, definitely.
Where at least Jigsaw followed the suit of the other movies. So I didn't necessarily think that it was a failure. I just thought it was a lot of the same stuff we'd already seen, but being touted as like, this is the new vision of Saw. But I think Spiral might actually be the new vision of Saw.
I agree. It's one of the things I'm most depressed got pushed back with COVID. So back to the film for a little bit. One of the main things that really struck me is, obviously humor is big in this film, Hatchet, but like one of the funniest things to me isn't played for humor at all. And it's when they set Victor on fire and he's standing there and he's in flames and he falls over and then it rains and puts the fire out. That is the funniest shit in this movie to me. I love this moment because it's so insane and yet it kind of works, you know? What did you guys think about that? Was it too much for you, or you enjoy it, or what?
I saw that one two different ways. I saw this hilarious when it happened. But then two, I saw it as someone who spent a good amount of time in the South and in Louisiana. That's very believable. The rain would just happen, just come out of nowhere. As I talked with the two of you before we started recording, like the weather has changed 5 times since I've been, and it's changed probably twice since we've been recording. It's thunderstorms. It was clear out. Now, like there's another place at one point, and now there's another, I guess front coming through. I saw it as believable, truthful, something that would have actually happened. But God, I laughed so hard when that happened.
I agree. I went to film school in Florida, like I think I've said, and it it would rain out of nowhere. And the funny thing is, when you know that, you can do a lot of things and play around with that people don't. Like tourists, like when they go to a theme park down there, Universal, Disney, whatever, it downpours, they flee to their hotels. But 10 minutes later, it's not raining anymore.
Right.
It's beautiful. It's hot. The sun comes out. It gets evaporated like that. And then you have a beautiful day. And yet they're back on the bus, back to their hotel room. And even by the time they make it back, you can get on like 3 rides. So I loved it. I never would hide when it would rain. Might go in a store for like a minute or two, but then most of the time I would just walk in the rain to the next ride or whatever I wanted to do. And because I'm a big theme park person, I had the season passes to Disney and Universal when I lived down in because I went to school Winter Park, right next to Orlando, and I would just go and on my days off from school would go to the theme parks. But but no, for me it was fully believable. But it is one of those crap moments in the movies. Shit, we finally made this massive success and it's gone, it's dead, and of course it's gonna rain. But so it always gets like a sort of a chuckle when I ever watch it with people, but it's also one of those moments that, like, if you know the area, it is fully believable as well that could happen. It doesn't warn you. All of a sudden, the skies open up. Most places it like gets dark and crazy, but there it'll be like a lot of times it's fully sunny and beautiful weather, and it starts downpouring.
One of the that I find most intriguing in this film really plays into what you guys are talking about right now. Victor seems to be longing for his father, right? It's always he whispers daddy or creepily yells it. I don't know. But, he's got this daddy issue going on. And then we also have Mary Beth, who clearly she's longing for her father as well. Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting how these two characters have this in common, and they're both willing to kill, right? And what do you guys make of that? Like, what do you have any feelings on these two both longing for their fathers?
I've honestly never thought of that before. I definitely can see they're both definitely longing for him. From Victor's point of view, obviously it's because his dad was the only person or entity that gave him any positive or just general affection, Mm-hmm. His dad was the only one who loved him because his dad was the only one there who wasn't a bully and such. And with Mary Beth, I think it's just like I don't know, maybe she's a daddy's girl in some ways. But I think a lot of her thing is just trying to find her family, because without her dad and brother, she'd be alone. So I don't know if necessarily for her is as much about her dad as much about like just finding family. But it could be about her dad. I wouldn't be shocked if Adam did that on purpose to make like a correlation so that the two of them aren't as different as you might expect them to be.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as far as just them being alone, because now she's alone. I don't recall them, mentioning her mother, but Victor, obviously from the story, from the folklore that's surrounding him, he's alone. And we may have talked about this on a previous episode, but one of people's biggest fears is being by themselves, or just being alone, or at least like not having anybody. I could see that as being her thing. Like, what do I do if my father and brother? What do I do? Maybe I need that closure to find out what happened to him, search for him. Now I'm alone. Victor's alone in these woods by himself, or in the swamps by himself.
Poor Ainsley. Nobody cares about him.
Not even his dad.
Yeah. Samson's all like, why can't you be more like your sister? Like, that makes comments about him sitting when he pees. I mean, geez.
I was thinking about that right now.
Gosh. There's some great one-liners in here, but my favorite line in this whole film is when the older couple is walking towards the house. You want it? Go for it. Go for it.
No. Go for it. Go for it.
I love how the lady says, let me get my notes so I can read it exactly. We have the good Lord with us. The good Lord will protect us. And then they just get fucking slaughtered.
Yeah.
And this is so reminiscent to me right now of certain Facebook posts that I see I won't mention any family members by name, but you know, like, I don't need a mask because God's going to protect me from the COVID. And I want to just like
wearing them like idiots with like the no nose being protected. Like I love there's a post online about it, like a meme going around where it's wearing your mask like this and it shows without the nose, like wearing your pants like this or your underwear like this
with your dick out,
with your dick hanging out. It's true. It's a big part of, like, it's like, why wouldn't you? Like, I just got some masks custom ordered because I'm sick of wearing these stupid, ugly looking. I thought, you know, I didn't know how long this was going to last. So I have these ugly masks, couple I homemade myself with some handkerchiefs and fabric, and then a couple of them that I got, like, just like the blue and white ones, not the medical grade, but like cheap kind of throwaway ones. Mm-hmm. And now I finally had somebody make me some ones that are a little nicer because this is going on a lot longer than I thought it would. And it needs to in order for the world to be safe. But because of that, I'm like, but I purposely got mine made large enough so that I know with 100% certainty they will hit my nose, cover my nose and mouth in a nice secure place. Because yeah, that is a great line. I love that couple in general though. That whole like have you ever heard of Bayou Beavers? And the guy's like, yes. I was like, no. It's just, and I love him as an actor, Richard Riley. He is, just in general, he's always hilarious.
I just love how willing he's going to Jim and Shannon. You know, they seem like those typical or those stereotypical tourists that are going everywhere. And, you know, he goes on the tour and he starts the tour guide saying like, oh, I don't think that's true. That's not a ghost. That's water vapor coming up from the swamp. But yeah, that whole scene where they're getting on the boat, the guy has the camera, or now I can't remember his name. Shapiro has the camera, and he has the two girls with him, and he's like, oh, are you a movie director? You're making a movie? Yeah. Have you ever heard of Bayou Beavers? And he's just so quick, and he forgets that his wife is there, and he's like, yes. Oh, no. Which is every guy, at least every guy who has, I guess, adult films as a secret from their spouse, or because the spouse is very judgmental, which, you know, you start to understand when she starts with the religious talk, where he's kind of like, well, I can't fucking let her know that I'm a freak or I'm a weirdo or whatever she probably thinks I am by admitting to watching naked women. Meanwhile, they're taking a trip to New Orleans.
I really want to make a meme or like a little video of this old couple saying, God will protect us, and then immediately follow it with Joel David Moore wearing a mask and then Victor Crowley just spitting blood in his face. I think that would be a great video to kind of convey the message.
That would be really cool.
You know that cemetery scene at the end, or near the end, you see a couple names on the graves. You see Sarah Elbert and Corey Neal, who are both producers of the film. Yep. And the little like mausoleum that Marcus gets slammed into, Adam Green. Yep. I love that. That's a great fucking touch.
No, they love getting, they love putting that kind of stuff in there. And why wouldn't you? I mean, I produced a film called They're Inside, which is available on Amazon Prime as well. Also on Blu-ray and stuff from Epic and Dread. And in it, I had the ability to play like a deceased person in it. So I literally got all bloodied up and stuff, took a bunch of pictures with my supposed spouse and all that. But like it's the same thing. Like I love the idea of doing that. Even in the documentary, I'm in there as just a quick shot of me in a photo, me and my cinematographer actually with Robert Englund and KANE Hodder, me getting my KANE tattoo, as in the tattoo. Like I love the idea of being involved in a minor way. Like a lot of the time through the doc, people who I was making it with would ask, are you going to be in it? And I did not want to be in it in the traditional documentary way of like, you know, an over the shoulder shot or shot of me being like, so why is this important to you? I knew I never wanted to do that. I knew I wanted to ask the questions and be the person there not only directing the film, but directing like the flow of questions. But I also wanted to cut myself out in that respect. This is Kane's story told in his words, and I think that it's brilliant to do the same thing if you're doing a narrative too, which is why I wanted to be involved in that respect with Their Inside, which we also in that film we took a page from Adam Green and did all practical effects as well. The only digitally used in it, like in the Hatchet movies, is to clean up things that are inherently going to happen with practical effects. Blood tubes or rough seams and edges and needing to composite things together, but that's it.
Nice.
Yeah, you guys should definitely check out Their Inside if you have Prime, because it definitely is. It's a completely different movie. It's a found footage horror thriller about two sisters who go off into the woods to film a passion project and end up being targeted by killers doing a passion project of their own. So it's The Strangers meets Funny Games.
Interesting.
Is how people pitched it, and I think it's a brilliant way to pitch it. It's psychological. It finally answers the question that no one's been able to get right before, in my opinion, or very few. Why would they be recording found footage at a certain point? Because I love filming and photography and everything, but if I was being chased by murderers, I'd put the fucking camera down.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of different types of footage in the movie to play into that as well. Right. So, but yeah, as far as that goes, I love when in movies when people do that, and Adam does it a lot. If you look in the store, definitely in the second one, I think in the first one too, the voodoo shop, Marie Laveau's, I'm pretty sure there's Victor Crowley merchandise in there. I know in the second one there definitely is. There's Victor Crowley live shirts and stuff. There's the Jack Chop in there, that from the short that he made, one of his Halloween shorts. There's a whole bunch of references to his own internal universe in there. Kwajalein is mentioned, where Kane grew up. Kwajalein Island at one point. It's also the name of one of the, or it's also the name of the research base, I think, on or the research area that Jason is frozen in Jason X. On the side of that, the freezer thing that he gets frozen in, it says in big letters Kwaj, Kwaj. Also have to wear it because Kane throws that in wherever he can. So if they ever need a name of a place, you'll hear Kwajalein in a lot of his movies. There's a lot of great films out there, and things have changed. I mean, back when the first Hatchet came out, they mainstream or independent. It was the height of the home Blu-ray DVD market,
right?
And that's why that film came out and made a lot of money. The budget was $1.5 million, and it made a lot of money.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how much. I'm sure Adam has those numbers somewhere. Definitely the distributor, but it made a lot of money, and that just doesn't happen anymore in the same market. So you need to be smart with how you do things. And Adam has been a genius when it comes to self-distribution, something that I want to do with the next project for sure. I'm not opposed to joining forces with a distributor to also distribute it, but I would also help distribute, but I would love to do his the tour method of promoting it, because his Victor Crowley tour, his Digging Up the Marrow tour, both of them generated money and attention for projects that if they were just released on DVD Blu-ray would have done, but by doing the tour and getting people out for an event, come to your local theater, we'll screen the movie, you can buy. He was selling Victor Crowley skulls for sale. The book from the fourth movie that one of the characters wrote was being sold. Different original materials were being merchandise from Victor Crowley, original roadshow shirts and stuff. Like, so not only could you go and hang out with your friends and watch a great entry in a classic franchise, but you could also get excited about it, especially when you have somebody with KANE, who is willing to do a lot of those stops with you. If you combined a tour with conventions and stuff, I think you could really have a great market. And that's why I'm definitely not opposed to doing that in the future. Because I love going out and talking up these things. There's a reason that we've been doing this now, on the call for over 2 hours, is I love talking about horror and love talking about the films I'm lucky enough to be a part of in any way. I mean, I was heavily involved with both of the titles I've mentioned, but I would be up talking anything that I work on that I believe in, and lucky enough to have worked on 2 projects that I believe so strongly in that I want to keep promoting years after they're out.
Yeah, you were talking about like how theater tours work, and I've been on both sides, sort of. Like, I've helped support people I know and gone to the show and helped them set up and do all that kind of stuff. I've also just attended. I saw Crispin Glover's films. I don't even know how to describe them. Anybody that knows what I'm talking about will know why I can't describe it. But I got to meet Crispin Glover, and Crispin Glover is one of my favorite actors of all time. So it's this cool thing that I probably wouldn't buy on DVD, but like having the experience and getting to meet him, and like, he had a bunch of merch there as well. So same thing. Like, it's just such a cool experience. And it becomes like a mini convention. So people like me who have convention addiction have this little piece of it that you can go to on a Wednesday night or whatever. But it's also got a really cool special feeling. Like,
right,
you can buy the DVD, sure, but you don't have that memory. And that memory and that experience is huge. I mean, to bring it back to theme parks or anything else, like, that's why we go. It's that experience. It's that show that we want to be involved in, And I think that I wish more people would do the tour thing. I think it's kind of catching on more. I live in a huge market of Phoenix, so like we get quite a few of them, and it's really cool. But what I really enjoy about it is that it's not the same thing over and over again. Like, it could be like Corey Feldman was here one time showing Goonies, or it can be something where you don't have access to this film any other way. And I think it's so cool, and I hope that it catches on more and more markets.
I agree, because you and I are both lucky enough to live in areas that we get these things. Near Los Angeles for me, Phoenix for you. But, I'm guessing that, Donald, unless you go to like somewhere a bigger area, you probably don't have access to a lot of these kind of road shows.
Well, there's the film festival here, the Oxford Film Festival. I think this year was supposed to be their 18th.
Okay.
But of course, Corona happened. And they
that's been knocking out like big things. Yeah,
everything is canceled.
Hollywood Bowl hasn't canceled a season in 98 years.
Holy shit!
Canceled its entire summer season. So there's no Hollywood Bowl. So all of the things from live from the Hollywood Bowl that you would normally watch will not be there. It's going to be an interesting. I mean, we're going to get back to normal eventually, but it's going to be a new normal, I think, for a while. And but I'm eager for at least some things to come back once it's safe for them to do so, because I like the idea of going, Sonic was the last movie I saw in a movie theater, and it was months ago. And I would love to be able to go see him, even if it's an older movie or like they bring movies back and screen movies that were in the theaters before this happened for a little longer. Like, I would love to, I have the AMC A-list thing. I would love to go and do more things.
I'm trying to think what the last thing I went to see was. I think it might have been Guns Akimbo.
I think it was probably Sonic for me.
Somewhere right now, Josh Miller is smiling, and he doesn't know why. So, I want to talk about the end of this film really fast, because I had completely forgotten how the film ends. And I was so overjoyed with the ending. Number one, you get kind of a Jason throwback here. You're on a boat in the lake. You know, Friday the 13th, the first one ends with the boat in the lake and Jason comes out of the water and grabs her and pulls her in. And we get kind of like that. She gets pulled into the water and then she looks up and she sees Ben's hand dangling down, trying to pull her out. And as he pulls her out, we find out that his fucking arm got cut off and Victor's holding it. And Ben's over here all chopped up. I was watching this in my spare bedroom. I jumped off the bed and I was like, fuck yeah. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm just like, yes, yes. And I love this ending so much. Don, you hadn't seen it before. What did you think of this ending?
I'm telling you, every kill, I was doing the same thing. I was in my office, had the surround sound thing on it. And so every kill that was taking place, I'm like, fuck yeah, that was cool as shit. And when it came to the ending, I'm like, oh man, it's like, okay, cool. They're going to do some nostalgia thing, but oh man, I want something like different. I don't want this to be too much like Jason. And when the hand, when it was the hand, I was like, okay, well, Ben's saving her. Okay, I'm going to have some, ambiguous ending or whatever. And then you see it's Victor. I'm like, fuck yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. That was a cool way to do that shit. Still paying respect to the classic films, but giving you something new. Giving you a nice little twist to it that makes this movie its own, but also pays homage to the classics.
I mean, I would argue that Adams just got great kills throughout his films, but the Hatchet series film kills are just phenomenal. I mean, when you have KANE Hodder say that the sleeping bag death is no longer his favorite because it's a kill in Hatchet, like, you got to know the kills are good.
Right.
You know? So what was your favorite kill in this film?
For me, it was it's a tie. It's not going to be Marcus, getting destroyed like he was. Although that was a cool sequence. It was the ripping the face apart. That was one, and then I also liked the belt sander to the face, only because she didn't die immediately. Because you're sitting here asking this question, like, well, that wouldn't fucking kill her. It would really hurt, but she bleeds out, and you get that part to it where you kind of like, that was cool. It was creative as far as the attack that he had. But just the brutality of ripping the top half of someone's skull off. Fucking awesome.
Yeah.
What about you, Derek?
I mean, the head to rip apart is definitely one of them. I mean, I love them all, but I think that one's probably my favorite. And then you have another one. Just obviously, if you had all seen all of the movies, I would go into more details on that. But as the movies go on, there's other great kill. I mean, the whole franchise up to the fourth one, like through all of them, they have some incredible kills. And but yeah, from this one, it's definitely the face being torn, ripped apart, one for sure. And then probably a close second would maybe Doug Shapiro when his head gets torn like completely around. Because I think that's such a ridiculous image of the like with the like skin all bunched up and like giving him like quadruple chins and all that stuff. Like the idea of doing of some of this stuff is just, it's pretty incredible.
So I like the head rip. I actually really like Marcus's death. I like that he gets his arms ripped off and you're like, that wouldn't fucking kill him. But no, he's not dead. So we pick him up and we swing him into the mausoleum. I love that. But my favorite death is oddly the most realistic in my opinion. And it's Jim's death. The brutality of how Victor just keeps chopping at him. Like, Oh my God, that death, like, I'm just sitting there like, holy shit. Now, if you go my favorite Hatchet death, having not seen Victor Crowley, so I'm not counting that, it is in number 2, and it's towards the end. And I don't think I can say more than that.
Pretty sure I know.
Is it the Tony Todd one or?
Yeah.
Oh, I already know. I mean, you can
I know,
tell
but the
that one.
listeners might not. So I'm just saying that's my favorite. So I think that about wraps it up for this week. So Derek, why don't you tell everybody again where we can watch the Kane Hodder story and They're Inside and anything else you want to tell us about, and then let our listeners know how to find you on social media.
Yeah, great. Tell and Back is available on Shudder. It's available on Amazon Prime. It's available on Blu-ray DVD combo pack if you want 90 minutes bonus footage. They're Inside's available on Amazon Prime. It's also available on Blu-ray, not DVD combo pack, just Blu-ray, and it's has a lot of great bonus footage and bonus features as well. On social media, you can follow me, Derek D. Herbert, on Twitter and Instagram. And then that's DerekDherbert. And then my company that made this movie, the two of them, Masterfully Macabre Entertainment, is available, Masterfully Macabre Entertainment, on Facebook, at Masterfully Macabre, on Instagram, and at Masterfully M, since macabre was too long, on Twitter. But we're available everywhere, and hopefully we'll have some newer stuff going on. Right now I've been working on a couple of short films, prepping them for post-quarantine filming. I made a 2-minute short for the Roger Corman Film Festival a little while back. Dusted off my acting chops after over 12 years of not acting. I decided to act in it. And just make a little short 2-minute film. And then, I've been prepping 2 shorts to film, hopefully at the same time during after quarantine's over. And then, recently been prepping a feature, script. I've been working on the outline, with my co-writer, and him and I are going to write the whole thing. And hopefully start putting together a pitch deck and pitching that feature out to investors. It's not a horror film. That one is a drama, but I'm very interested in getting that one done. The shorts are both horror, but the drama is one that, after tackling a project like To Hell and Back, I know I could do a drama film, and I want to do something that really kind of is different. And I love horror, and I don't think I'll ever leave the genre, but I also want to be able to tell. I have a whole lot of stories I want to tell in this lifetime, and I don't want to limit myself by just one genre when I can have a playground of more than that.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And as far as whether you can handle a drama or not, you got Kane here to make me cry. I think you'll be fine, man.
Well, thank you.
So before we wrap this up, if you're up for it, would you like to share any behind the scenes stories from the making of the documentary?
All right, cool. Let me think of some cool ones. Kane, at one point in his life, when he was in high school, was climbing. He climbed on the outside of a balcony, I think it was 35 feet or 35 stories in the air, in Hawaii. He grew up on a small island in the South Pacific called Kwajalein, but every once in a while, the high school team that he was on would go to Oahu to play basketball with other high school teams instead of the adults that he would have to play over there. And when he was there, they had a lot of free time. One of the things he did was freak people out by climbing out there. And he recreated it for the documentary, at least mostly. He wanted to do the whole thing for a little bit, but his wife just said to him, listen, I won't be mad at you at all if you want to do it, but I would prefer if you didn't. And so he took it to heart and made his own decision and decided to recreate it to a big degree, which we were already terrified by the degree he recreated it. And when you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But that was one thing that really got it. There was also just when you work on a project with somebody like Kane, there's a lot of, I don't know how to put this, but he's a larger than life type personality. and you're at these events with him. So he literally would put you in situations that I don't know how to say it, but like he a lot of times would bring up situations that he wanted to have recorded as well. So we a lot of times would be doing our own thing, and I'd get a message from him being like, "Come back to the table," and then like, which is great. I mean, it only made it better that like some of the fans that he found over there were really great and wanted to tell their story, or somebody had a great Jason tattoo or a really cool personal story about that wanted to be shared. And like, so I think a lot of people think that Kane would be intimidating to work with, but he is in fact one of the nicest people that I've ever met, and someone I'm very proud to be fortunate enough to call a friend and a colleague. He's just very kind, down to earth. If him and I were talking on the phone and my voice is a little raspy because of allergies or something, he's the first person to like stop the conversation and ask me if I'm doing okay, if I'm sick, is everything okay? Like, and it goes both ways, because if I feel like he's a little off, I'll do the same thing, because we want to make sure the other one's doing well. We want to work together again in the future. I have a bunch of films I want to work together with him on, and I'm sure he'd be very excited to get back to work on doing something else, because we just had a blast. I mean, it was about 2 years to make this whole thing, probably a year and a half, I would say, by the time because we started prepping everything in January 2015, approached Kane, got everything together. We filmed the first 2 days were in June, I think 15th and 16th of 2015. And then we did Indianapolis, and then Hawaii, and then Atlanta, meanwhile filming all the other interviews. And then we took a bit of a break, and then we went up to San Francisco and did a lot of stuff with the burn center. And that is another thing. Kane had not been back to that burn center. I think he went there once after he left the burn center, but this is the first time since then that he had been back. And I might be wrong about that, but I know it was his first time in a long time. And so the emotions we caught on camera, him seeing it, were real. Like, it was a big deal for him to be back there. These are the people he credits with saving his life. Dr. Capozzi and the team there saved his life. The other doctor, just severe malpractice. But this is the place that turned him around. Like, this is the place that took him from death's door and made it so that he could have everything he has to date. So all those emotions came back to him. And the fact that they built a beautiful new burn center there, that you see bits of in the documentary as well, with state-of-the-art air beds that, like, if you need to get turned with burns, like they used to have to, you'd be laying on like a regular hospital bed and they'd have to come in and turn you. Extremely painful, even when done the right way. But it has to be done to avoid bed sores and everything. But now they have these pressure air beds that literally they can inflate a certain way and it turns you one side and it will slowly turn you over. Still hurts, but if the pain's being monitored, nowhere near as bad as it used to be. And so they're very in touch with everything state of the art. And it was back then too, but 30, 40 years, things change in
Absolutely.
What's state of the art. And a lot of the things have remained the same. You still have to do a lot of the same treatments. You still have to debride. You still have to do a lot of those, but it's how you do it. And it's how you, and how they treat the patients has ultimately remained the same. It's at that facility anyway. It's respect. It's dignity. It's understanding that a burn is not just a physical ailment. It's mental. And there's a lot of psychosomatic symptoms that come from an injury like that. It's not like, oh, you broke your arm. It's a million other factors. that come into play. A lot of them that Kane, unfortunately, still has PTSD because of these circumstances. And we touch on that in the documentary as well.
The first thing I'd say is that scene where he gets to thank the doctor is just beautiful. Like, everything about that scene is great. Like, just the raw emotion on Kane's part, and like just being a part of that, so to speak, getting to witness that. And then knowing how much time Kane spends with burn victims, whether it's visiting kids in burn wards, or it's even like Cassandra was talking about how they bonded because she was burned. And I made the mistake of looking up how she got burned, and I wish I hadn't done that. I don't handle anything happening to children well. But like, just seeing how he embraces the empathy for other people that are going through it, like, that really comes through in your documentary. And I really appreciate that. So aside from that, Kane's kind of a known prankster. Did he pull any good pranks on you, or anything you want to share in that regard?
Yeah, Kane. Okay, so the biggest prank he did was he did some little ones, but he knows that I'm terrified that he was going to scare me. And I think by a lot of the thing is he didn't as much as he would have normally done, because he already knew he won because of how terrified I was. So so one of the things was when we were filming those first 2 days, we took we would take little breaks here and there. We were dealing with some very heavy material, and those were long days. Kane would sit for 10 hours and talk, but we would take breaks for meals, for snacks, for water, just quick cool down, makeup touch up, etc. But one of our breaks, one of us had to use the restroom. So then we all ended up using it because we're not going to want to take another break. So I was in the bathroom at the sound stage, and he walks by and just bangs on the door as loud as he could, and then says I'll be waiting out here. And then every corner I flinched when I turned, and then I turned the last corner and flinch, and he's just sitting in the chair. He's like, "I got you, didn't I?" I wasn't going to just stand around. Who knows how long of a shit you were taking or something. He said, like, he just cracks up with that kind of, he's just brilliant at, he understood too that, I was handling sensitive material as well. So I think he didn't want to frazzle me too much.
So I have one final question for you before we close this down.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if Kane's ever choked you, but I'm going to modify it. How many times has Kane choked you?
I'm trying to think. I'm guessing about 5. He doesn't do it anymore.
No, he does not.
But for most people, I think if I asked him to do it for me, for a photo op to promote the documentary, or if we were doing a panel to promoting the documentary, I'm sure he still would, but it's not something he does at conventions anymore.
Yep.
But, and I understand why. It's unfortunate, Definitely. But I understand why. But, yeah, it feels like you're, especially I know Kane's not going to kill me. He need me, or I don't know now, maybe he would now because I finished. But I don't have any thoughts that he would do that. I said, but I think that it's still, you for a moment can't breathe, and it's a weird feeling because you never will experience it if Kane doesn't do it, unless you're actually choking or getting, have the sort of, it's like a wind knocked out of you feeling.
Yeah, I will never get to experience it because it stopped before I considered doing it. So a little jealous, I'll be honest. Anyway, yeah, so I mean, I feel like I want people to know, go check out your film, go check out Hatchet, go check out all of your other stuff outside of to Hell and Back. I love this documentary so much. From my heart as a fan of Kane, thank you for making this film. And from my other aspect on this show, thank you for picking Hatchet. I'd forgotten how much fucking fun this film is. And it really... I've had a shitty week, and it was so much fun just zoning out and watching Hatchet again. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And for all of that, like, I love the fact that this film has resonated the way it has. I did not set out to make a fact-based, just fact film. I wanted to have a film I knew with Kane's story. We had a roller coaster ride, and that's how I set it up. I always thought every 10 minutes we need to talk about human interest and horror. And if you notice throughout the entire movie, about every 10 minutes we jump topics in a completely natural way. And that is a huge credit to our editor, Mike Hugo, who just, good Lord, is he talented. It was a task getting to the final project. Our first cut of the movie was about 6 hours, then 3.5, and I thought it was done at that point. And then 2.5, and I thought it was done at that point. And then slowly but surely we whittled it down to our very, I think the movie has a very nice pace to it, and it's not very long, 142 minutes. Like, it's a little over an hour and a half, and a very digestible length. And for the people who want bonus footage, 90 minutes of it's on the Blu-ray. For people who want more, eventually I might get around to editing more of it. Again, I said I have 32 hours of footage of just Kane, plus a lot of other people's footage, a lot of B-roll stuff, like footage of him in various situations and conventions and everything else. But I think the stuff we've released so far is good.
Just feel free to send that all to my house, and I'll take a look at it for you. And
because we could have made a Crystal Lake Chronicles or I forget the name of or Never Sleep Again kind of a thing. And we had the footage for it. We could have made a 6-hour-long documentary that delved into every movie he's done and every intricacy and every personal thing. But I wanted to make something that not just people like you, James, would devour. I wanted to make something that the person who watches a documentary on an Olympic athlete, or this Michael Jordan one, or the one on Danny Trejo would come and watch because they're fascinated by him and his story, and the story of a man overcoming adversity to become the top of several career paths.
I think that's beautiful, and I think that's a great place to end. So I just want to thank you one more time for coming on the show today, man. This has been a blast.
Thank you.
That wraps it up for this week. As always, I am James Sabata.
And I am Don Guillory.
And we'll see you next week here on the Necronama.com.